Hello everybody and welcome to this new review by me, Goblins, Flights and Reviews. I know it's been a while, but hey, can you guess what we got for you today? It's a new piece of avionics to play with. It is the brand new, newly released, only a couple days old, Flight1 GNS530 and 430 for FSX and P3D, which we got here today. Flight1 have graciously provided this to me to do a review, which I am about to do now. So let's hop straight into it. I will power the unit on, and then I will talk to you about some additionals in relation to this unit. So let's actually jump straight in and power the thing on. The product has been available for a couple days now, as at the time of this recording, for FSX and P3D. All versions of P3D, all versions of FSX. The price for FSX is $49.95. The price for P3D is $64.95, which obviously requires a separate purchase. Also, make sure you download and install the right one, because the 530 and the 430 are separate products, which you have to pay for separately. In addition to that, these units also work pretty much similarly to the old Reality XP units of a couple years ago, in that you need to download the Garmin trainer for this unit, which they will provide you a link once you install it. Let's go ahead and conclude the startup. Excuse me. And then jump straight into the main page, because what we're gonna do is, if you remember my GTN review, we're gonna do a similar thing in that we just go over every single button and every single feature, talk about what everything does, give you an explanation of the Flight1 panel management tool that comes with it, and then a conclusion at the end. So the usual format as you would expect from me. So right now, looking at this, you can already tell what it is. It's a GNS530. If you've ever used the older Reality XP units or those other things from another competitor, then you are immediately familiar with this. This is the kind of like the granddaddy of the GTN, I suppose. At least it is to me. I used these things a lot back when Reality XP was actually a thing and it was still relevant. So this is actually pretty nice. I like that Flight1 have actually done this, because this gives you more flexibility, because some airplanes just don't really work with the GTN. You would rather have a GNS in it, so this is actually absolutely perfect for this. The unit itself, if we go around, it has quite a lot more buttons and dials than the GTN. If you remember, the GTN only has like a touch screen and then like 2 or 3 buttons on it. This is a lot more. This is also a lot more analog. This can do just as much, but it's more manual to do it. It's more analog to do it. Going around the outside of the bezel here, on the top we have the COM swap function, which when we press we can swap the COM frequencies. Below that we have the power knob, obviously. If you turn that off, the unit goes off. Below that we have the nav swap for the frequencies, and also have a localizer indicator down here if we have a active frequency. Down here is the volume in the real one. This is not simulated here for obvious reasons. Below that we have the COM and nav frequency knob, where the inner one does the points or the decimals, and the outer one does the whole numbers, basically the megahertz. Down here we have an array of buttons, which is basically all hard keys. They all do the same feature no matter what page you're on. The CDI switches between GPS and VLOC, obviously, so your GPS and nav switch down here. Your OBS, pretty much self-explanatory what this does. When you have a VOR frequency tuned and you are in the nav mode or in the VLOC mode. Message obviously displays messages to you, which you can then cancel or accept. Flight plan page, which we'll talk about more in detail in a moment, but again, pretty self-explanatory what this does. The flight plan page, page 1 of 2. Page 2 has your stored flight plans in it. Yes, this thing can store flight plans. Down here we have the VNAV, or the VCalc, as it's known on the GTN. This works pretty much identical to the GTN, where if you have a flight plan, you put in your target altitude, your target position, and your profile, and it will calculate a point of, or top of descent for you, and give you vertical guidance. It's not vertical navigation, it's just vertical guidance, basically. So it works similarly to the VCalc, where it just gives you a here, please descend now to achieve that desired rate, basically. Down here we have the procedure button, which again works fairly similarly. You have full SIDS and star support for these units. Also WARS approaches for, I think, the United States only, if I remember correctly. Not entirely sure on that. But yes, full SIDS and star support, full arrival departure support, as well as when you have a departure or an arrival active, you can do vectors to final and activate approach on here, which is why they are grayed out right now. Again, we will talk about these in more detail in a minute. Sorry about that. Moving on, over here on the right we have the range, up and down. Again, I guess pretty self-explanatory. Up zooms out, down zooms in. Direct to functionality, again, relatively self-explanatory. The menu, where we have different features like the auto zoom, the change fields, and the restore defaults. Also note the crossfill is grayed out right now. That's because right now crossfill and traffic are not available on these units. It will be in the future. It will be a paid update. Again, pretty much like the Reality XP units of old, but I don't suppose it will be as expensive as the Reality XP update. So we'll see. We'll see what they do, but they've already said that the crossfill and traffic will be in a paid update. Most likely also include crossfill for the GTNs, but I'm not sure about that. I don't know. That is conjecture, so don't quote me on that. Down here we have the clear button, which will also declutter your map. If you can see it over here, your 1 and 2, up to 3 steps of declutter, or back to default. Enter does pretty much as you would expect. Confirm selections, etc., etc. And then the cursor, the inner one, switches between the pages of the selected mode, and the outer one switches between the modes. Now, going through each functionality a little bit more in detail, I think we should start with the flight plan. Like I said, it works pretty much like you would expect, because I suppose that a lot of you out there have used the Reality XP units or the Flight1 GTNs by now, so this works in exactly the same way. Nothing's changed basically over the years. The only thing that's different is the way it's presented and the way you actually push the buttons, but what it actually does is the exact same thing. By which I mean, if you want to create a flight plan, you push the cursor with the middle mouse button, so you get your cursor here, and then you can enter whatever you like. The fact that you don't have a keypad means you have to do it a little bit more manually, and it's a little bit more involved, the process. I actually don't mind that too much. I actually like that. I'm pretty much used to that, so this is not really an issue for me. So in that way, you know, you can very quickly set up a flight plan there. The only thing this thing doesn't do, as far as I know, is airways. Let me check. No airways, so you have to live with that. Also, if you press the menu button, you will get this page menu here. You most likely always will get a page menu once you press the menu button, irrespective of the page you're on. So in here we have obviously activate lag, then again cross-full grayed out. Copy flight plan actually stores the flight plan on the unit. If you press copy, you will be selected or directed to the save dialog basically. So if we do that, you will see, if we go to page 2 over here, there we go, this is your flight plan catalog. You have 20 no, actually you have 19 total. Oh yeah, more than that, but yeah, 19 flight plans that you can store. And then we'll just overwrite them starting from 1 again, so you can store a number of flight plans in these units, and then recall them at a later point, obviously. Also do keep in mind that the flight plan storage for the 530 and 430 is actually separate, if I remember correctly, so you have to keep that in mind. Flight plans you do on the 530, I don't think you can use on the 430, but we will check once we talk about the differences between these two units. Then, furthermore, on the flight plan page, you also have the option to invert the flight plan. Pretty self-explanatory. Delete the flight plan, select approach, select arrival, select departure, which you can do straight from here, or from the procedure mode. Closest point of flight plan is also very interesting. What that does is basically, you have a route that goes from A to B. Let's just say that you go from, like me, from Bergen to Munich, and you want to see what is the closest point of my flight plan to, I don't know, maybe let's go with Berlin, for example. Let's go with Berlin Tegel. Let's see, T. There we go. If you do that, this will create a waypoint for you at these exact coordinates or at this exact position. It will create a waypoint for you on your current flight plan. It is not gonna, you're not gonna fly a turn or anything like that. It will create a long track waypoint at 253, bearing 120 miles from Berlin Tegel, because that is the closest point that your flight plan goes past, basically. This can be extremely useful. By the way, do not discount this feature. This can actually be pretty useful for certain scenarios. I wish the GTN had that, because they don't, as far as I know. So this is actually pretty cool that you can do that. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Furthermore, parallel track, which does pretty much what you expect. You can set an offset to the left or the right of however many nautical miles you wish. And then we also can have change fields and restore defaults. Change fields basically does this. Your desired track, your distance, and your cumulative distance. You can change here to a couple other ones. As I said, cumulative distance, leg distance, desired track, estimated time of arrival, and estimated time en route. This is really just if you want to customize it, basically. If you want to, for example, I don't know, like, you know, make it yours, if you will. I like to change data fields around a little bit every now and again, which it's just me, basically. You know, it's not really required, but I like it's there. It makes the whole thing a little bit more usable. That pretty much covers the flight plan page itself. If you look at here, you can do a new flight plan on the stored catalog. You can do delete all flight plans and sort a list by numbers. You can also copy flight plans over if you have them selected. Excuse me, I'm coming over the cold, man. It's terrible. Okay, that pretty much covers the flight plan page for now. We'll probably come back to that later. Let's actually talk about the navigational page here, the main nav page here. As you can see, it's laid out pretty straightforward. You have a desired track up here, your actual track, your distance, your ground speed, and your expected time en route between your flight plan. What you can do here, again, if you press the menu button, you can disable the auto zoom, which will automatically zoom out to a maximum of 200 miles to accommodate your current leg of a flight plan. You can change the fields, and you can restore defaults. Change fields, again, if you don't want desired track up here, but let's say you want, I don't know, you en route safe altitude, then you can do that, and then we'll display your en route safe altitude here. So, again, it's just down to pilot customizability and pilot usability. I do encourage people to use these features a lot, because they actually help making the unit a little bit more usable and make your life as a pilot a little bit easier. When you have the option to customize, basically, yeah, just presented the information that you want at the time you want, because this is very, very useful. So, but for the sake of this video, let's keep it at default to make it easier for you, because that's what it's going to look like for you when you get these things. So, the page itself, as you can see here, you have a train outline, water, and if you zoom in, you also get start airspaces, VORs, the usual stuff, and then eventually, if you go down even further, you will have the airport and intersections, as well as helicopter airports and stuff like that. So it filters pretty well, depending on the zoom level. It does a fairly good job of filtering the map, so it's never really overly cluttered up, basically, in my opinion. So it does a fairly good job of that. Down here we have, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. Let's go over to the next one. The next one is more of a map view. That is probably more something that you would see from the GTN, or probably used from the GTN. On this page you can also do a number of different things. Over here you have your data fields. You can turn those off, by the way. You can turn these off in the menu. And then you have a nice big map view here, which of course you can also zoom in and out. Maximum zoom for this is 2,000 miles. So as you can see, you have your Barents Sea, Greenland Sea, your labels for everything that you require, and if you start to zoom in, it will also start displaying the highways, and it gives those highways their real life numbers basically. So that makes navigation a little bit easier, and also you can zoom in all the way down to airport level here, down to Bergen where we are right now. Let's zoom out again a little bit. There we go. Menu button again does pretty much everything that you want it to do. You can do the setup map, which allows you to do a couple of things. It gives you either a north up or track up orientation option. I think it was track up. Oh, it gives you desired track north up or track up. There you go. And then scrolling down, you also have the auto zoom on off, land data on off, aviation data on off, and the wind vector on off. Unfortunately, because this is a little bit older than the GTN, you cannot select the level of detail you wish to have for this data, so it's either on or off. But again, a little bit older technology, you can still do it, you know. That's just what it is. Furthermore, you can do a measure distance feature, which is also very useful if you want to find out, obviously, the distance between 2 points, which will then give you the distance from the current pointer. If you see, the outer knob moves it laterally and the inner knob moves it vertically. If you actually get that, there we go. So it will tell me if I put my pointer here, it is 119 degrees, 108.6 miles, and it is at these coordinates. The funny thing I can do with this, in general with this map view, if I do menu, I can either stop the measuring, or if I press enter, it resets the thing to where it should be, and I can do a new measure from that specific point. So if I press enter, it will reset to its current cursor position as the 00 point, where the measure starts from, basically. So if I do this, and if I go all the way back to my airplane, oops, you will see it will always reset it basically as soon as you press enter on this measuring tape. I don't think you can actually. I suppose you can you? Oh yeah, right, okay. So with the measure distance, what you can do is, if you have measured out something, and let's say, you know, you want to go there immediately, you can just press the direct button, and it will do that. That's pretty. I didn't actually know this was possible. Wow. Discovering new features as we go. Sweet. Okay, cool. Data fields on, like I said before. The right side data field window here. You can turn that on and off. You can also, of course, you can change the fields on here between a ton of stuff, actually. You can do, as you can see, a lot, basically, of what you can select here, which is amazing, absolutely fantastic. And then restore defaults obviously does what you would expect it does. It restores the defaults of the unit. One other feature this map view actually has, one other feature this map view actually has, if you press the cursor with the middle mouse button, if you press the inner knob with the middle mouse button, you get this pointer back. This pointer is absolutely fantastic, because this is basically the equivalent of using your finger on the GTN. What this does is it allows you to scroll across the map, pretty much to any point you want. And once you hover over a point, it will not only say map pointer, but if you zoom in a little bit, it will also start saying that you are inside an airspace, for example. So if you hover your mouse over this airspace right here, there we go, and if you press the menu, never mind, I won't. How will that work? You had airspace information on this thing, I just don't remember how you got that to. Anyway, on certain airspaces, you actually do get airspace information once you hover the thing over here. Oh yeah, review airspace, it's the enter key. I'm sorry, I'm being an idiot. Yes, the enter key. Once you have an airspace selected and you press enter, it will tell you the information about the selected thing, be it an airspace, an airport, a waypoint, a VOR, or anything, any nav aid or airspace, basically. It will pop up this window, but you have to press enter. Yes, sorry, that was my fault. On here, you can also review the airspace information, and you can also view the frequencies of the airspace or the airport it belongs to, in this case ENTO. We'll get back to this page in a bit, so let's not get hung up too much on this. But yeah, you can review airspace information on here. You just have to remember to press the enter key. Yes, so that was a derp on my side. So if you do that, a mill trading area, probably shouldn't want to fly in there. What you can also do with your scroll wheel, basically your mouse pointer here, if you press the enter button, let's actually go to here somewhere. Let's go down. There we go. Through the airspace, hallway, CTA, vertical limits, upper and lower, as well as all frequencies available for it. If you press done, what we can also do, if you press enter, you can create a user waypoint at the exact point your mouse is right now. We can call that 002. What we can also do is we can include that in the flight plan, obviously, if we want. We do that by either just going direct to it, which we can do, of course, or we go to the flight plan page down here, and then just enter the 002, or whatever name you have given the custom waypoint. These waypoints are persistent, as far as I remember, so even if you power the unit down and then power it back up again, they will still be retained, but again, also only for the 530 and 430 respectively. I don't think they carry over, but again, we're gonna find that out once we do the differences. I don't think they carry over, at least. Other than that, again, this feature, I find this to be probably one of the most useful features of this entire unit. The ability that you have a scroll wheel, a cursor, that you can use to just, you know, select just a random point, create, and you have a user waypoint there. Which I find to be absolutely fantastic. Or you just do a direct to plus map, and it will go there for you as well. So you don't even have to create user waypoints. You can create user waypoints if you want them to be persistent. If you have an airport that is not in the database, for example, or something like that, you can just hover it over, press the enter button, so you want to use a waypoint, name it appropriately, store it, or just use the direct feature, as you can see here. So this map view, probably the most useful one, at least in my opinion. I use that a lot, actually. I have the data fields on usually, and then I use this system quite a lot in flight. This is more like a flight plan overview page, but yeah, this is probably the most useful page, for me at least, in this entire unit. Then, coming up to page number 3, we have the terrain, which again should be relatively self-explanatory. Red is bad, yellow is still bad, black is okay. Coming up here, you can inhibit the terrain, so you don't get yelled at if you fly and approach too close to it. Obviously, enable the terrain. You can test the terrain, which we'll do now.
TOS system test okay.
As expected, she will tell you that the TOS is okay. You can change between 360 and 120 view angle. I personally like the 120 because it just tells me what's in front of me. I don't need to know what's behind me. And also you can hide and disable, or hide or show the aviation data, so you can have either pure terrain view or with airport information, VORs, that kind of stuff. So even if you zoom in, you know, intersections and stuff like that. So this is actually also extremely useful, the TOS on this unit. Yeah, it's a terrain view. I mean, you have your MSL up here. You can't change that though, unfortunately, so you cannot change that to something else. That's pretty much what it is. That's what it stays. Next page. Now on the real unit we'd have the traffic, which obviously this one doesn't yet, which will be soon. So the next one is your departure and yeah, to the departure information page. Yes. This can also do a fair number of things. As you can see, we have no options here because we don't need to. What we can do, however, if we activate the cursor, we can look at all the frequencies, obviously, for tower, approach, ILS, etc., ATIS, yada yada yada, everything we need. What we can also do, if we have a frequency selected, if you press the enter button, look what happens over here on the COM1. If we press enter, it gets automatically selected into the COM1 and we can activate it. Our, in this case, ATIS frequency, and we start having the ATIS coming in right now. Flight1 Airport Information Sierra, 1253 Zulu, etc., etc. So this is pretty neat. Makes selection of frequencies a lot easier. This page in general, just select the frequency, press enter, it will automatically get selected into the standby box in this unit. Also scrolling down here, we have the info box specifically for the approaches. What this does is basically the same as the airspace information page, only specific to this approach. It gives you the frequency. It also gives you the altitude restrictions, the bearing, if there is one, and the operating hours, basically, or when this approach is active. So between 5 and 23 local, I think, on Monday through Sunday. And you can do that for pretty much everything that has an info. So in this case, just the two approaches, the north and south approach, basically. You can do this for every airport, by the way. This is just the departure airport right now. If we switch that to Munich, our arrival airport, you get the same information. So this is for your flight plan. And all the waypoints and airports along your flight plan. If you have more than 2 airports in your flight plan, it will also do that for you. And Munich, at least the approaches, you know, narrative is north, south, east, west, etc. So this is a general information page for your flight plan and for your aviation information, basically. Very, very useful. Again, I used a lot, especially the frequency pre-selection I use quite a lot. You can do that down here. And it also works not only for COM, but it also works for the, if we select ILS, it also works down here for the ILS down here. What else do we got in here? Let's go over to nav page number 5, which is the 3D div nav. This is your GPS status page. Utterly useless in flight sim, in my opinion, because the satellites are not simulated. It's still there because the trainer has it, obviously. But yeah, not really, not really useful other than giving you your current position and your current altitude and time. That's pretty much what it is. The time is UTC, as you can see. You can change the altitude over here. If you wish to change the fields, you can change the altitude field to something else, like the ground speed, your MSA on your track. So, I mean, I've never used this page, I don't think. I don't really have a use for it, so whatever. It's just, you know, it is what it is. It's there because the trainer has it. Going back to the main page. Before we move on to the next page, let's actually talk about procedures for a second, because they are quite interesting. So, procedures work in the same vein as they do in pretty much every other GPS unit or FMS or whatever. And then you select the departure, you select the departure that you want, it will give you your transition, and you can preview the whole thing. So, very, very useful. It gives you a preview. You can zoom in and out on this preview, obviously. Although you cannot browse, or you cannot, you can't have a mouse pointer, essentially, if you know what I mean. Like we did on the map screen. You don't have a mouse pointer, so you can only zoom in and out. You cannot just scroll. Basically, you cannot pan the map. Pan is the word I was looking for. Yes, you cannot pan the map. Unfortunately, you can only zoom in and out and review the approach or departure that way. And with the menu button, you can also load into the active flight plan, load and activate, select approach channel, and select destination airport. Again, relatively useful. You probably won't be using many of these other features for the most part, but whatever, you know. It is what it is. Coming down here, we have the same thing for select approach, select arrival, select departure. They all do the same. Once you have a approach selected, either an ILS approach or a non-position approach, you will get the option to either activate the approach or activate the vectors to final, which means you will bypass pretty much most of the approach and you go straight to the vector point, basically your final approach point. That's pretty much it for the procedure page. No options here as well. Also loaded procedures, it will display down here if you have anything loaded right now, and then you can have your direct features down here as well. VNAV, like I said before, we already covered this. VCalc works pretty much identical to the GTN. If you have a waypoint selected here, you can select your target altitude, your target position before or after, how many miles, your desired profile, and your vertical speed required. And also the status down here. So this is very, very self-explanatory, I think. You can also turn on and off the VNAV messages. This covers the navigation page. We still have a couple to go through, guys. Stick with me. Coming up to page 2 is the waypoint page, and you can see we have a lot of stuff to do here. So, let's go through it. What this does is give you general airport information for all the airports in your current flight plan. Not only that, excuse me, by any waypoint in the world, in any airport in the world. Because you can just activate your cursor and change that, if you wish to something else entirely. But it has pre-selected Munich in this case. You have your facility information down here, where it is, your position, your elevation, your fuel, your radar, airspace, etc. So you have a ton of information here for you. Menu peak doesn't do very much other than the selected destination airport, which it already is down here. So yeah, this is general airport overview, general airport information. Page number 2 also gives you airport overview. It gives you the runway layout, how long the runways are, how the operating hours are, what type of runway it is, hard surface, soft surface, water, etc. And also destination airport. You can do this for every airport in the world. It will pre-select to you your departure and arrival airport when you have a flight plan loaded, but you can view every airport in the world basically with this. The same goes for here, the frequency information, which we talked about before. If we activate the cursor, you can just select the frequency you want, press enter, and it will get pre-selected into the box down here. Then on the next page we have the approaches, which again, if we have an approach selected, let's go with, I don't know, 26 left, transition VMOC, and then we can enter that and preview the entire thing, basically zooming in and out. As you can see, it's a little bit hard to see, but you get the basic gist. I mean, you obviously use that to cross-reference your charts, make sure everything is correct, make sure everything is set up properly. And again, you can do this, like I said, every airport in the world, but it will pre-select your departure and arrival airports for you doing this. The next page does the same thing, but for the arrival procedures, which we talked about. The next page will do the exact same thing for the departures, which we talked about. Then we have intersections, every intersection in the world. It will again pre-select all the intersections that you have in your flight plan, should you have any. We don't have any, so we start with A, somewhere in China, apparently, at the SYX VOR. And over here again, you know, you can select any intersection that you wish in the entire world and review its information and go directly to it. Same goes for NDBs, same goes for VORs, and same goes for user waypoints, which we have created here. So you have a list of all your user waypoints in here as well, but you can also modify the user waypoints, which means you can change their location by using the latitude and longitude format, as well as the information up here. So this, again, extremely useful. This is basically your waypoint data, or your navigational data information system, information page. Extremely useful. I don't find myself using it a lot personally, but you know, it's there should you ever need it, and there will be moments when you probably will need it, most likely, as they are with everything. I mean, these features exist for a reason, so eventually there will come a time where you will actually have to use that feature. So it's good that it's there, so you should know how it works. The next page is the AUX page, if I remember correctly. Yes, AUX page. This is the equivalent of the software page on the GTN. By which I mean this is all your utility things, your flight planning, trip planning, utilitarian things, which I find very interesting and very nice. So, if we come up here, your fuel planning. We're not moving right now, obviously, so all the stuff is blank, but your point, your present post to the map plus, and it will give you your reserves, your fuel on board, your required effective range, endurance, as well as your fuel on board right now, your flow, as well as your ground speed. You can obviously, again, put in your flight plan here. You can either do point-to-point, so either present position to your final destination, or you do a cumulative for the entire flight plan. It will update as you fly the flight plan. Menu is also, you can change the fields down here. Like I said, you can customize the stuff. You can change that to your efficiency, your endurance, your landing FOB, landing reserves, your fuel required, or your range. It's everything. Everything is already there, but you can change the layout. You can change the way the information is presented to you, how the information is presented to you, and where the information is presented to you. Again, you probably won't be playing around with that too much, at least with the customizing options. In general, this gives you a very, very nice and accurate overview of your fuel situation for your current flight. The same goes for the trip planning, which does the same thing except for time instead of fuel. So it will tell you when you arrive, how long you have to go, your en route safe altitude, your distance, your ETA, your ETE. Just, you know, it's a trip overview. It's your progress page, if you will. For those flying the FMS stuff, this is your progress page, essentially. So, as I said, like the GTN, you know, very, very similar to the GTN in the way it works. Down here you have your density, alt, TAS, and winds. Again, very, very similar. I mean, similar to a fault to the GTN. Your air information, your current air information, basically. Again, very, very useful in the right scenario. And your scheduler. The scheduler, also very nice. It will allow you to set up reminders and alerts at timers. I have one up here. I just don't ask what this is. I mean, this is just me being stupid and hacking something in. And you can select a event, a one-time, or a periodic. An event is a calendar point. A one-time is a countdown timer. And a periodic is a every X seconds, hours, days, etc. will this happen. This works on a day basis, up to 24 hours, every 24 hours. Everything beyond 24 hours you would use the event feature for, but one time. If you do one time, you can select the time we wish to use, and if we go with, let's say, I don't know, let's go with 10 seconds. So if we do that, you will see the thing counting down to 10 seconds, and I will display this message down here. You have the message pop up down here, and we'll tell you schedule a message 190 BB, whatever that means. So very useful if you want to set up specific things in your flight, you know, kind of alerts or reminders or stuff like that, or, you know, just anything. The scheduler. And crossflow, again, grayed out, will come in a future update. It just is not in right now, but it will be in a future update. Page number 2, we have checklists. Yes, this thing actually has support for checklists. We have 9 checklists that we can use. We currently don't have any use checklists right now, but we can create a new checklist, delete all checklists, or sort list by entry. We can call that checklist whatever we want. I don't actually know if there is a way to import checklists like there is on the GTN. I will look this up in the manual, and I will get back to you on this specific feature when we do the conclusion, after we've done the panel manager. I will get back to you, but yes, this allows you to manually create checklists for your airplane. And again, I'm not sure if you can import it, but I will check on that. But up to 9 checklists can be created here, which you then can call upon and use. Your flight timers, which are obviously your engine, your hops meter, your total trip, your departure time, your power on criteria, etc., etc. Again, pretty self-explanatory in my opinion. You know, flight timers, you need them in the real airplane, not so much in the sim, but still. Trip statistics gives you a maximum ground speed. How did I do 600 knots ground speed in a Meridian? I don't know exactly, but okay, cool. Also your trip odometer, your total odometer, your average ground speed, and your maximum ground speed, and obviously the ability to reset these units as well. So again, you know, statistical stuff. Rain prediction does absolutely nothing in the simulator. Still there. And then software versions, database versions, and terrain database versions, untwist my tongue, do exactly as you would expect. They give you the current software versions. Again, this is a lot more relevant in the real unit than it is on this one, but again, it's in the trainer, so it's in here. The third page gives you your CDI and alarm setup, your selected CDI scale, if you want it to be on auto or up to 2 miles down to 0.3 miles, as well as your system CDI, your CDI auto capture, arrival alerts, if you want to set these up, how many miles away from your final approach fix it will start yelling at you, as well as your airspace alerts here, Class B, TMA, Class C, TCA, Class D, restricted, MOA, and altitude buffer. I usually only run the restricted and military ones because these are the most relevant ones. Units in position allows you to change the format you like to use, if it's magnetic or true, as well as down here if you want to use metric, statute, or nautical. Feet or meters, again, you know, meters per second, meters per minute. Your inches down here for the pressure, either inches or millibars if you are in Europe, as well as Celsius or Fahrenheit, as well as gallons, imperial gallons, kilograms, liters, and pounds for the fuel unit. Excuse me. I'm telling you, man, I'm feeling I'm getting sick. As well as down here, your position format. Your position format either in this one, MGRS, or UTM and UPS. Whatever, I guess if you want to fly in Russia, you have to use that. Your map datum, you cannot change on this thing. Not sure why you would anyway, but you cannot change it in here. And as well, you can do a restore defaults on here as well. Date and time, again, pretty self-explanatory. The current date, the current time, UTC, in the simulator, obviously. And then also the time format, either local 12, local 24, or UTC. I usually keep it at UTC because that's just easier. As well as, again, restore defaults if you press enter. So default is local 24-hour, actually. Display backlight, you actually cannot change, I found out. It will always stay on auto. You cannot switch that to manual. It will always stay on auto for some reason. So I don't know if that's a bug or if that's intentional, but you cannot change the display backlight. So I have to deduct points for that. Not actually, but you know. Nearest airport criteria, runway surface minimum length. You can set that up so it will only display airports that have runways above a certain length or above a certain surface. Hard only, hard, soft, and water, as well as runway length filter. God, I have trouble talking today. Don't know what it is. And then data field configuration. Not entirely sure what this does, but you can't really do much with it other than config data fields. Oh, interesting. Ah. Oh, that's neat. Okay. Oh, that's cool. I didn't even know you could do that. Wow. That is dope. Actually, that is pretty sweet. That's how you do that. Okay, cool. Well, you just join me exploring new features that I didn't know exist. That is cool. Oh, okay. So you can, where you usually have your ILS box for, you can have other information down here. That is cool. I didn't even know that was a thing. Sweet. Cool. I have to remember that. That is cool. That is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Sweet. Cool. Okay. I got sidetracked there for a second. Sorry. COM configuration. Channel spacing. Either the American or the European 8.33. I prefer the 8.33 because I mostly fly in Europe. And then page number 4. you have your S-Pass selection, which basically just means, do you want to use WAAS, yes or no? Yes, of course we do. So that's that. Satellite-based augmentation system and wide area augmentation system. Hey, fun stuff. So, that pretty much covers the aux mode of these units. I'm flabbergasted that you can actually change this down here. Also, is this deliberate? This seems a little bit off center. This seems a little bit off the thing down here. Interesting. Well, the last page that we have is our nearest page down here. So you have your nearest airports in the list down here. You can quickly select them, press direct and go there. Pretty self-explanatory. It's the nearest airports, and they will adhere to the filter. So if you do have an airport filter set up for runway distance or runway length, they will only show the runways that are the appropriate length for your filter. So that's nearest airports. You have nearest intersections, which work the exact same way. Your nearest NDB, nearest VOR, nearest user waypoints, your nearest ARTCC, so your nearest airspace, your nearest controlled airspace, nearest flight service station, as well as your nearest airspace, which interestingly enough is empty right now, but okay, probably because I'm on the ground, I suppose. Yes. And also your nearest FSS, I'm sorry. And if you have the FSS selected, you can also, if you press enter quickly, box the frequency of the flight service center there as well. And it also gives you a bearing and distance of how far the flight service center, the physical flight service center, is away from you. So, that pretty much covers most of the features, I think, if not all of them. I'm sure I've missed something, and I'm sure people will let me know if I have on YouTube later. What we're gonna do now, we're gonna go to the desktop, and we're gonna talk about the panel manager that comes with this unit, because this actually has a couple tricks up its sleeve. And then we will come back and talk about final thoughts back in the simulator. So, I will see you in a second. Hello and welcome to my desktop, I guess. So, let's talk about the Flight1 GNS series configuration, or panel configuration utility. If you've already used the GTNs, this should be fairly familiar to you, because this works the exact same way. You start it up, you run it with admin rights, and then you will be presented with this screen right here, where you can select the aircraft of your choice. So, it will also say what aircraft you already have configured with the units, and what aircraft you still don't, basically. Also, a very cool feature that is new with this GNS specifically is, if we scroll up to the Corridor 1900, it's a Reality XP unit that's displayed. Now, what does that mean? Well, if we select it, instead of configure GNS, we get replace Reality XP. So, what Flight1 actually have done on here, which I think is really cool, they give you the option to, if you have an airplane that comes with a Reality XP configuration, to immediately replace that completely and fully with their unit. All the click spots, everything. It's just a one-to-one replacement. So if you press that button here, it will say that the aircraft has been converted to the Flight1 GNS. And if we then go over here, instead of saying replace Reality XP, we can go configure GNS. It will tell us that this is a custom configured airplane, and we strongly recommend that you do not change the information, basically. And if we go in here, we get the same format that you are probably used to from the GTN, if you have used that before. So what we can do, we can either drag this thing around and display, or position it on the 2D panel. That's the pop-up. We can also select it and use the top, bottom, left, right, basically quick align buttons. We can turn on or off the stack at different locations. So if we want it top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. I personally never use the stack, so you can also select which units you want to have, up to 2 of each. Basically, you can have 2 530s, 2 430s, 1 530, 1 430, etc. And also you can select which 2D panel you want them on. So in this case, since it's a Canadian airplane, we only have the info. Beyond that, what you can also do, over here in Unit 1, you have the user options, again, same as the GTN, namely that you can select which nav radios you want the thing to use, which autopilot mode, either heading, hold, or nav, mouse, fast or normal, link course, auto course, fuel, automatic or manual fuel entry, so it will detect the fuel level that your airplane currently has, the sound, the invert mouse, the active mouse, the CPU core, or the play click. So this is all very, very simple and very self-explanatory, I think, and then you press enter, and it's saved, and as you can see here, every aircraft that you already have configured with this unit will have the little Flight1 symbol, and every aircraft that has the Reality XP units in them that you can replace these will have the little Reality XP symbol. Also, you have a link to the support site, and as well as a link to the PDF manual, the 19-page PDF manual here, which goes, over installation and usage again of this whole thing. And I've actually been reading this manual. I don't think there is an ability to actually import checklists to this thing. I don't know if that's intentional or if that's a feature that will come in the future, but you have to create the checklists in these units manually. So there's that. So yeah, that's a quick look at the manual here as well, next to the panel config utility. Let's go back into the simulator, talk about the differences to the 530 and the 430, and end with a conclusion. So we'll see you back in my simulator in a second. Alright, and welcome back to the simulator, where we talk about the GNS530 now. As you can see, the button layout is slightly different. Also, the display is a little bit smaller. Other than that, the default nav page obviously doesn't have a map view. It will only give you a condensed information of your current selected waypoint or your current flight plan. If we actually do go into here and select a flight plan, down to Munich, you can see it will just, it gives you a condensed view as well as you see the how far off track you are. The other difference is that you don't have a VNAV functionality or a VCalc functionality on this thing. At least I don't think you do. If you do, it's probably somewhere else, but I don't think the 430 is capable. I think it's only the 530 that is capable of that. Other than that, the differences are non-existent pretty much. I mean, the units are, other than that, functionally identical. They can do the exact same thing the exact same way. The only difference is the slightly smaller form factor of the 430, the slightly smaller display. Also, you have your CommuNav. The only thing that you're missing here is the ILS identifier, so that is not there here as well for space reasons, obviously. And the data fields are also present, so everything is there. Everything works the exact same way. You can still scroll around the map, get information about whatever it is that you're looking at, etc., etc. So everything is absolutely identical, just a much smaller package, totally. Which pretty much brings me to the conclusion of this, because the 430 itself, there's not really much more to talk about it other than it's smaller. So yeah, okay, cool. So conclusion time. Would I recommend that you buy these? Yes, absolutely, I would. As completely unbiased as I possibly can be, yes, you absolutely should, because this is, much like the GTN, a very well done, very complete piece of complex avionics. If you are a fan of complex avionics, then you should absolutely consider picking these up. There's not even a question about this. For the simple reason that it's a GNS. A lot of people wanted to have these for so long now. Reality XP stopped pretty much doing anything. They pretty much stopped existing a couple of years ago, and the other competitor on the market is just not good. So what they're offering here is an incredibly comprehensive and complete package of an avionics suite that is maybe not as advanced technically as the GTN, but is found on pretty much a huge number of airplanes in real life. So I think that this makes an amazing alternative for people that want to use an avionics GPS suite that is not as technically advanced as the GTN, or not as new, or just like the GNS, because if you have aircraft that use Reality XP units, you can just replace them on the fly and go, you know? You can, your entire fleet of Reality XP GPS airplanes that you have right now, you can convert to use this with one click, and you're done, and you're set, and it works in P3D, and it works everywhere. So for the price they're asking, I think actually this is a bargain, not a bargain, because the Reality XP units were a lot more expensive than these. A lot more expensive than these. So these are actually incredibly good value for what you get, because you do get a full and complete, minus crossflow and traffic, which will come soon, a very, very complete GPS navigational package. So I wouldn't even second guess. If you like avionics and if you've been looking for a more advanced and a more detailed GPS unit, you should get these immediately. Like, don't even wait. So that's my my conclusion on the whole thing. And to wrap things up, to reiterate, the units are available from Flight1.com right now. They are, the FSX version is $49.95, the P3D version is $64.95, or your regional whatever equivalent of euros or pounds or whatever. Separate purchase for P3D is required. Additional Garmin trainer software is required, which the installer will prompt you to download and install once you install it. And that's pretty much it. I love them. So check them out. They are absolutely fantastic. My name is Super Sea Goblin, and I will see you next time. Bye.